Perfect. There's my cue. So good afternoon to all of you, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Ken Kettenbiel. As I mentioned, I'm Vice Chancellor for External Relations, and with us on the webinar today is our Chancellor, Domenico Grasso, Provost Sue Elcock, Vice Chancellor for Business Affairs, Jeff Evans, and Vice Provost for Enrollment Management, Melissa Stone, that you will hear from in just a few moments. So there's really two topics that we are going to be discussing today. One is our fall plan, which hopefully all of you have had a chance to digest the communication that went out on Monday. And I'm sure some of you will have some questions about that plan. And I know a lot of you did because we got a lot of questions submitted. And then also our fiscal year 21 budget. And the Chancellor will address the actions that were taken by the regents this morning. And you may have noticed the headlines, but we don't have a budget, and we thought we would today, and that was one of the reasons why we scheduled this town hall on the day that we did. But the Chancellor will address what our next steps will be shortly. What we did do is we reviewed all of the questions that we received, and each of the panelists are going to weave in answers to your questions in their brief remarks. And we really wanted to allot more time on this webinar to more questions from faculty and staff. We heard that when we sent out the feedback survey a short time ago. So if you do want to ask a question, along the bottom of the screen is a Q&A button. I see questions are already being answered. We will wait till all of the panelists do their presentation, and then we will serve up those questions. I think we're all pros at Zoom and Zoom webinars now, so I probably know the functionality. And as I mentioned too, that this is being recorded, and we were able to turn around and post the recording of these to our website within a couple of days. So if you like what you see in here today, you can watch it again over the weekend. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chancellor Grasso to open this up and share some comments. So Domenico.
Thank you very much, Ken. Thank you all for joining us today for this town hall meeting about our fall plans and the budget. As Ken said, we planned this in anticipation of the Regent's action approving the budget. Unfortunately, that did not quite happen today, but I do want to just quickly go over our fall plans and then answer some of the questions by way of narrative that were posed and talk a little bit about our budget. Of course, I hope all of you have had an opportunity to read the emails that went out earlier this week, although it seems like months ago now to me. But it was just a few days ago that we announced our fall plans, which will be hybrid. There was a lot of work that went into the plans, a lot of work from Sue Alcock, the Provost's team, and our folks over in the EOC, Laura Drabchek and her team. And we designed our fall to focus primarily on preserving the academic quality of our offerings with the overarching mission of keeping everybody safe and healthy. So we will be offering a hybrid. Primarily, it will be remote, but we will have on-campus classes that will be focused on topics or activities that we can not do quite as well remotely, like lab classes or senior design projects. And we will go fully remote for all of our classes just before, right after Thanksgiving. The last day of any online activity will be the beginning of the Thanksgiving break. The regents this morning considered the budgets that were submitted, and we had many conversations with the regents before this, and there was a lot of very good conversation back and forth about very important topics. The regents split down the middle in a 4-4 vote. And so that meant that we did not have a budget at the end of the meeting because we needed a simple majority to have a budget. And the primary points that the regents were concerned about was the tuition increase on the Ann Arbor campus. As if you had the opportunity to watch the regents meeting, you will note that we were going to propose a 1.9, or we did propose a 1.9% increase of about $124 a semester. And we were going to also propose block tuition, which would allow our students to finish faster and more economically because they would not be charged additional tuition for any courses they took over 12 credit hours. We were also going to increase our financial aid by 11.8%. And when we considered everything together, our financial aid comprises 89% of our state appropriation. So 89% of our state appropriation goes directly to the students. And then the rest, along with other resources, is used to run the campus. So this is pretty much the situation that we're in right now. Also this morning, though, on a very positive point, President Schlissel announced that he was going to invest $10 million into the Flint and Dearborn campuses devoted to student success activities. Now, I want to be very clear about this. This money is not intended to be used in any way to fill budget gaps, only for student success activities. Fortunately, our strategic plan, as you know, was being developed or has been worked on over the last year and a half, and the overarching component of that is student success. So we've got a lot of ideas on how we can deploy the resources that will be coming our way to help our students be more successful. So let me continue by just trying to address some of the questions that were posed over the internet before the meeting, and then I'll turn it over to my colleagues for their comments, and then we can answer questions in a more interactive fashion. One of the questions was, what is, when I say mission first, and people always, what does that really mean? And I do want to say that our mission really is to provide a Michigan quality education to our students. And that means attracting students of all means that can benefit by a Michigan education, can succeed, and making sure that they cross the finish line. So student success is our primary mission. And people always means that we have to take care of all the people that help us do this. And we want to make sure that as we fulfill our mission, that we are cognizant of all the effort that goes into this and how those people are experiencing the COVID crisis, how they're experiencing other challenges, and how we can help them realize their goals, either in the classroom as faculty members, in their research labs, or as staff members as well. So one of the questions, and I've received a few comments on this, is athletics and how we came to the decision around athletics. So because we are in a very high COVID incidence area, or have been, we were one of the core critical areas in the United States, in the state of Michigan, around COVID, that offering anything face-to-face could be challenging for us because our students, our faculty, and our staff commute in and out of Detroit and Macomb County, Oakland County, Wayne County. These are all the hardest hit areas in our region. So this is what drove a lot of our thinking in terms of our online or remote offerings for the fall. Because we're going to be primarily remote, and many of the student activities that are going to be extracurricular are going to be remote, that it did not make sense for us to ask our athletes to come to campus and incur a higher risk level than what we were expecting of the other students and faculty and staff on our campus. And given what's been happening around the country with some high profile sports programs that have had to close down, like Kansas State, Boise State, and some others that have experienced COVID instances, I think that this is the safe approach for our student athletes. Of course, we will offer and we will honor all of our commitments in terms of financial aid to these athletes, and we hope that they stay with us and continue to receive the high quality Michigan education that they came to campus for. I know that some of you are interested in our tuition increase, And I just want to go over our budget once again, and we did this in the last budget meeting, is that we only get revenue sources from two primary areas. One is tuition and the other is state appropriation. And by all accounts, it looks like state appropriation is going to take a hit in the coming academic year. So we will see a decrease in state appropriation. And if we don't look to all of our sources of income and try to optimize that, then we will have to make significant cuts on campus. And we will always try to protect our academic quality at the utmost level that we can, but we are going to have some big challenges ahead. And we thought that 1.9% was the minimum tuition increase, and it is a modest increase of only $124 a semester, that we could maintain our academic quality even with a state appropriation decrease, because we'd be making some adjustments in other areas. So that was the primary reason for that. It's not, we would love to maintain a zero increase, but we felt that 1.9 was modest and would help us bridge a lot of our gaps that we were going to have. In terms of any salary decreases, we have a budget that is necessitating freezing of any merit increases for the coming year. We do not expect any other salary decreases except for the ones that were voluntarily taken by the senior leadership team. And I want to thank everyone who contributed parts of their salary as a give back to the university to help deal with the budget crises. But we are not expecting any other salary decreases for faculty or staff. I know many are concerned about layoffs, RIFs, involuntary furloughs. And what I can say about this is that we have worked very hard to try to find opportunities for everyone to be gainfully employed during this crisis. But there are some positions that may not have opportunity to continue to work because their work is no longer there because we're not on campus. So as we move forward, we're doing the best we can to minimize any impact on folks that are seeing shifts in their work patterns, and we will do the best we can to minimize any type of RIF or involuntary furloughs, but we cannot promise that that will not occur downstream here. Let me see. In terms of coming back to work, the current plan for our faculty and staff is that we will work remotely for the rest of the summer. I encourage as many of you as want to come to your office and get anything that you need to be successful at home. If you need to bring your computer, your printer, a chair home, you can do that by coordinating with your supervisor. But no one will be allowed, unless it's of a really critical nature, to come back to campus to work for the summer. The fall will be looking for different opportunities to come back, because we will have some courses that are going to be offered on campus, and some of the faculty associated with those courses will be able to come back. And of course, the folks that are in research labs have been transitioning back into their research labs. So those are the primary things. This is consistent with Ann Arbor's advice and what they're doing in Ann Arbor, and we're trying to protect everybody's health. And for those who have been tracking on the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, CNN, or the Johns Hopkins COVID site, you'll see that the cases are on the rise in the United States. We are not out of the woods here, and although it's a beautiful summer day here in Michigan, we want to make sure that we continue to keep ourselves safe and healthy. And this is why we're trying to protect our workplace by encouraging everybody to stay home to the highest degree possible, at least through the summer. And then we'll have a safe working environment for those that will be allowed on campus for necessary instruction or research opportunities. And I do want to say that we have a terrific, terrific leadership team, and we meet very frequently, and we're all talking about how to adjust things across all of our units so that we can optimize our efficiencies. And we're working together, and we're looking for all creative ideas. And I know that many of you have suggested ideas that have come into the Chancellor's suggestion website. We've looked at those, we're talking about those, and we're going to try to deploy as many creative ideas as possible. So Ken, I'll turn it over to you unless there's something else you'd like me to comment on, and we could go on to the provost. Ken?
Yeah, I'll just thank you, Domenico. Two things. Domenico has shared, the other portion of our funding comes from the state, and I just wanted to let the campus community know that my office, along with Ann Arbor, is closely watching what's happening in Lansing, and there isn't anything to report at this time, but we're closely watching when they are going to address the shortfalls this fiscal year at the state level, as well as what they're anticipating for the fall. So as we know more, we'll let you know more. And then one of the questions we received in advance is one of the faculty or staff members wanted to know if we did open up that anonymous website that suggestions on budget cutting can go directly to the chancellor. We had that set up the day after the town hall when that was suggested on May 28th. So if you go on to the new COVID website and click under resources on the upper right-hand side, and if you click under all the communications that have been sent, that one was sent on May 29th. So just click on that. There's a link that you can fill out a form. It's anonymous, and information goes directly to the chancellor if you have any cost savings ideas. So just wanted to close the loop on that question. And with that, Sue, we'll throw it over to you to talk specifically about some of the questions we received regarding fall.
On the academic side. Hello, everyone. It feels very good to be in contact. I want to echo the chancellor and express my gratitude for the very gutsy way everyone has pulled together so far, worked so hard, accomplished so much. It would be impossible to say, well done or thank you as often as you deserve to hear it. So lots to share. You've all seen the academic plan for fall. As the chancellor said, we'll be working in a predominantly remote modality with classes operating either totally asynchronously or with some remote but synchronous components. In-person teaching, that'll be those classes that involve equipment or other hands-on, you really gotta be there needs. Some of those will be fully on campus. Others will be coming and going, dropping in periodically for sessions. So we're talking about things like labs, senior design projects, things like that. You guys know this by now. I want to assure you, though, that we're taking every care to keep in-person instruction safe. We've carefully mapped out people densities on the campus. We're calculating how many people would be present both by day, by class time, by class location, in what building. So in other words, we're designing a deliberately, intentionally, socially distanced on-campus learning experience. I also want to assure you that the care will extend into the classroom and labs as well. In-person instruction will be conducted in clean environment, distancing, traffic control, the whole 9 yards. I know there'll be a lot of specific questions about this, especially as term gets closer. So many of us are building a kind of a what to expect, what to do set of guidelines around teaching, and we'll be sharing this no later than August 15th. Though, of course, please remember revisions, of course, as the COVID situation and CDC guidance continues to unfold. I'd also remind everyone we already have a really robust and very informative university webpage, the titled Go Safe, Go Blue, Go Dearborn. So that's the fall. What's coming up the pike, of course, are winter and summer terms. The provost office team is already chewing on this. We're in the process of evolving different public health informed academic scenarios. Starting June 23rd, we'll be sharing these scenarios with all faculty and just seeking your thoughts and input as we find the best way forward for our Dearborn community. There was a question about faculty involvement in fall planning. We did try to reach out. It was kind of running for our lives, figuring things out on the fly, but this time I want to involve the faculty voices much more. There were some questions that came in asking about space and equipment for recording lectures, and I'm very aware this is a need, and this is one exception to the general policy about stay home. By July 15th, we'll be reopening the lecture capture spaces in the College of Engineering and Computer Science. They've generously made these facilities open to all faculty on campus to use. Also working with ITS and digital education, we'll be making additional classrooms available for faculty to sign up to use if it's just not possible for you to successfully record lectures at home. So lecture capture equipment will be available, computer, webcam, document camera, tablet for annotation, as well as, let me get this right, they told me what to say, Kaltura, my video recording software, and media site. We'll also have printing available near those locations. Now, one thing, this won't be full service. It'll be more of a self-service experience, though faculty can always call the ITS service desk with difficulties. Again, these rooms will be available by July 15th with protocols around sign up, scheduling, and access to be shared soon. And I assure you, we wouldn't be doing this if we didn't believe, and emergency management, everyone believes we can do this safely. So I'll stop there and come back later for questions.
Awesome, Sue, thank you. I just wanted to underscore one thing that Sue said. I'm a member of the Emergency Operations Center, and we got a lot of questions about how are we going to ensure safety. Sue touched on some of those things, but what has been happening, guidelines have changed. And most recently, we sent a communication out that now faculty and staff that come to campus, regardless of reason, have to go through a training exercise. And then there's a self-health check that has to happen. So that came after 2 weeks after we just set a policy, for people coming onto campus. So it is only June, end of June, and we anticipate probably additional changes between now and August. And so just rest assured, there's a team of people that are on this. And as Sue said, safety is the #1 priority for all of us, for the people that will be coming back to campus at different stages. So thank you, Sue. I just wanted to highlight that. Okay, I think next we're going to go to Jeff, and I know your presentation got drastically abbreviated this afternoon, so I know there's a few things you wanted to share with the campus.
Yes, thanks. Thanks, Ken, and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our virtual town hall again. We appreciate your interest. Yes, as Ken said, I was planning to share details of the budget, but I will look forward to doing that in the July virtual town hall that we'll have after the next Regents meeting, hopefully. But I do want to thank everyone. So many people have been providing input and helping with budget planning. And as Domenico said, it is something that we've spent a lot of time on and we'll continue to spend a lot of time on, especially in the next couple of weeks. So there were a couple other questions. One question that came up, and I've had this regularly, is, what savings have we been realizing so far in FY20? If you remember back to the previous virtual town hall, we gave an update. As of today, approximately $1.9 million have been saved in such things as temporary overtime, travel, supplies, hosting, utilities, of course, and many other things. This is really important, and I'm grateful to everyone working on that. We will continue to look at cost-saving measures for the indefinite future as we have uncertainty, obviously, around state funding and fall enrollment, and appreciate everyone's commitment to that. The other update is about something that's been not too popular on campus, and that's finding a parking space. But I do have a parking update, and this parking update is positive news for students, faculty, and staff. But for staff and faculty, if you haven't seen the announcement I sent out, about an hour ago, I will just give a brief update. We have made a decision for those that are interested to accept a one-time refund for monthly parking fees for the time period of March 1st through July 31st. Alternatively, faculty and staff may request that those fees for that amount be donated to our U-Dearborn Immediate Relief COVID Fund supporting students in need. This amount represents $12.50 a month or $62.50. And the second thing is that this coming year, as we know and announced recently and talked about on this virtual town hall, most of our classes, or many of our classes, will be remote. So with that in mind, we will not be charging staff and faculty parking fees for this coming academic year. We will still need to be issuing permits, so that update is out there. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. I guess I'm just not convinced that parking's still going to be an issue for someone this fall.
Right.
It's a hot topic. Thank you. And good news. Finally, Melissa will provide a quick update on where we are with our fall enrollment, which is the other part of that budget model that the chancellor talked about at the beginning. So, and a big part of it.
Yeah, thank you, Ken. Yeah, as was obviously noted, understanding that enrollment is a critical driver to what our budget is, I wanted to just share everyone an update and kind of, again, address some of the questions that we had received prior to this meeting. Very important questions about what kind of support and outreach efforts that we're doing for students in the fall. You know, currently our fall enrollment is looking in line with projections, but we recognize it's obviously a very uncertain time, and we're continuing to monitor. With the announcement that went out on Monday, there have been very minimal shifts as far as new students. We did, just so everyone knows, there were very coordinated messaging across campus that went out to each of the different populations, so they were messaging appropriately to them. And at the same time, there are continued coordination across campus to ensure both new and returning understand that we're balancing academic excellence with a safe environment, and being able to continue to message the value in enrolling this fall. So there's a lot more work to do to continue to do that with our students, but at this time, there is nothing that indicates that our students do not understand and appreciate what we're doing as an institution. There's some questions also about what fall 21 recruitment will look like, and we definitely are also thinking about that. And as another example of something that will be very different, obviously, for not just our institution, but every institution across the United States. There was a question about on-campus recruitment events being canceled in the fall, and yes, on-campus events will not be held this fall, as understanding and being safe, continuing to be safe. But we have a very much a robust planning going on right now, and it's across campus planning efforts about what virtual events will look like. And you know, we've already seen the fact that there are some positives, and as we've said, this pandemic gives us an opportunity to think differently of how we do a lot of different things. And I think recruitment is a prime example of that, where typically the cost to bring students on campus can be exorbitant. And so the idea is that we can do much more events, but actually in a very kind of engaging, targeted way. And so we look forward to continuing the planning efforts that are going to happen this fall with the colleges and others, in the sense that we will be continuing to engage with our future students for fall 21 through more virtual ways. And we've already had very good experience with this throughout the last couple months. And as we all know, just as our current experience in interacting with all of you, the more we do it, the more people become comfortable with it. And so we are excited that although it'll be different, we still will be able to give it a good experience to our incoming students. And then there was a couple questions about, just I want to touch on a little bit about the announcement that went out on Monday and what that means to the students. There was questions about whether or not how students will know which classes will be synchronous versus asynchronous and the timing. I just want to remind everyone the timing of that right now. This does involve, now that the announcement went out on Monday, that the registrar's team does need to go through and now make individual course changes to every student. And what was messaged is we've made a commitment of trying by mid-July to get those schedule changes done. We're hoping as of today, everything is locked down and the team can start making changes, because there has been some work to still continue to change some modes. But the students will be messaged by mid-July, essentially, of more details on what they can expect from each of those courses. And if any are required to be specific times, they will know that by mid-July. And I did want to just give a brief update. I know our previous town halls, we've talked about some of our commitment to students and understanding their financial challenges. As a reminder, that we were able to get CARES funding for the institution, just under $3 million. I did want to give an update that at this point we have dispersed $1.5 million to about 1,200 students to help them through this pandemic. And we will continue to do that through the fall. And if you've seen the recent announcements, we've encouraged students to still be applying into the fall. And even in the spring. As a reminder, we had a year from the date it was dispersed to be able to spend this money. So this money will be available to continue to enhance the students. And this goes beyond the increase that we're potentially going to be giving when the budget's approved for aid to students. This is additional aid beyond that. So I just wanted to message the fact that this commitment to the aid that we're giving, there was a question that just came through, just to kind of get ahead of it, that talked about if the aid that we increase is federal versus institutional. I did want to message that it is institutional aid that was being messaged, that the commitment is on institutional, but there is a small increase that the federal grant will go up about $150 for our highest Pell students this year. So there'll be additional money for those high need students also this coming year. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. And the only thing I'll add on is we have a student town hall scheduled for July 15th. And we purposely waited, you know, for reasons that Melissa just explained, that her team has a lot of work to do to get schedules updated, and students are going to be receiving messages during that time. So we'll give them an opportunity to ask questions of not only a lot of people on this town hall, but also Dean Amy Finley is going to join that one as well next month. So thank you. Thanks, Melissa. I think, so that wraps up our presentations. We're going to start addressing some of the questions that are coming in. And Sue, I thought we could start with you because it sort of piggybacks on what some of the things that Melissa just shared. So I guess the first one is who decides if teaching is going to be taught synchronously or asynchronously? Is that up to the faculty member or department chair or you? You're muted.
I'm such an idiot. I did that last time too, I remember. Well, the faculty members should know by now what the modality is. I see it's if for those of us teaching remotely, who decides if it's totally asynchronous or synchronous. My understanding is it's kind of been evolved through conversations with the deans, the departments chairs, and the faculty. You know, to decide whether you wanted to if some courses do want to have the opportunity that though remote, to have the opportunity to bring students together, to hold specific times, so that there's one thing, you know, the sense of community can be continued, and that's fine. So it's I think it should be sorted out by now. I think all the colleges followed a slightly different procedure for how those decisions were made, but I think it should be set, and I hope you're pleased and happy with the modality you have.
And Sue, I guess another follow-up there too. Are we going to look at adjusting enrollment caps on classes if they're being taught remotely?
I haven't really talked about that in any detail, but I should go back and double check on that, and we can find ways to communicate answers to some of these questions that we may not get to. I'm happy to follow up on that question. Awesome,
thanks. Domenico, we have a couple that have come in regarding the budget. One of them is that $10 million that President Schlissel communicated this morning, is that contingent upon the regents approving the budget? And then block tuition that we would like to move forward with, is that also contingent if we don't get the 1.9% tuition increase?
Those are excellent questions. On the first one, whether the $10 million, I don't think that that's going to be, I think we're not going to be able to access it until we have a budget. But I don't think the tuition increase in Ann Arbor is going to be determinant of whether that money is available. So it will be available, but I don't think we'll be able to access it until there is a budget for FY21, because the commitment will be for the next fiscal year. With regard to block tuition, we're going to have to go back and take a look at what our finances are going to be and whether we are going to be able to continue with a 1.9 tuition increase or have to adjust that. And then if we have to adjust that, then we'll have to look at whether we can do the block tuition this year and offer that to students. But I do want to say one thing. The way that we had organized it is that the students that are currently enrolled would not see any type of increase beyond the 1.9% in their tuition. So if you were at a 12 credit rate, we would be providing financial support so that you would not see any tuition increase beyond 1.9% on the 12 credit rate, but you'd be allowed to take courses up to as many as you would want above that 12 credit rate, because we would now be in block. So it was a really big benefit to our students here. And I really hope we can do this because it will help them graduate earlier, faster, and more economically.
Thank you. And then another question, this came up during the Regents meeting this morning, and I don't know we don't have all the details worked out, but can you expand a little bit on what the student success activities may be, that could be applied, that we could use the funds for, the president?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And I know that we've been talking about this in the leadership group and with the deans for quite some time now. We've been thinking about potentially investing in advisors, tutors, career counselors, technology to help students cross the finish line. So our goal is really to improve our 6-year graduation rate to something much higher than it is. We want to attract as many students that are capable of being successful on our campus, irrespective of financial circumstances. So we want to make sure that we have enough resources for need-based aid to help attract the students. And when they get here, we want to wrap them in all the resources that they need to be successful. So that was one of our goals. Another was to look at students who may not have finished, but were perhaps close enough, maybe within 30 credits of graduating, and seeing why they dropped out, and if there were financial holes on their record, maybe releasing those holes, forgiving those holes, and allowing them to come back and finish. So these are some of the things that we were thinking about.
Thank you.
Madam Provost, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, I should say this wonderful windfall is a fairly recent idea. So we haven't had a whole lot of time to iterate on it, and we'll certainly be looking for faculty thoughts and input. But I think the chancellor is absolutely right. I mean, fundamentally we are here to to educate our students and to get them to a place where they can see where they graduate in good time, they are not massively in debt. So what, from that end target, what do we have to back up and think, what do we need to do better or differently, or support very good work that we're already doing more robustly? And I'd also toss it to Melissa, who I know has been thinking a lot about these questions too.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of echo what both was said. I think it's an exciting opportunity. The thing to keep in mind is we're also recognizing that this is essentially one-time money, right? So that anything that we do, we have to build it to be sustainable. But exactly what was said is we're trying to look at it as part of when we say student success. So I appreciate the question that came in, right? Because that can mean so many things, and it really does. It's many different things. But I think that's the key, is we're trying to think about programs that will wrap around where it's about getting them to the finish line. So it isn't going to be just one thing per se. It's going to be a combination of things, but also figuring out how we do it in a sustainable way, because this is not money that they're committing at this time that we're going to get year after year. It's one-time money. So that's part of what we have to be creative in, making sure that it's something that we can build to be sustainable.
Thank you. Question, will UM-Dearborn be providing PPEs on campus for students and their instructors? And I will start that, and then Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but in terms of students, Dean Amy Finley is leading up a committee that is heavily populated with students to talk about, what their expectations would be. And the plan is to provide some type of kit for students that will be coming to campus for classes. And Jeff's office, Carol Glick, is working on securing face masks for faculty and staff that will be on campus as well. Jeff, I think what I said is correct, and I know your office is involved in some things too.
You got it. And the kit will include face masks and maybe some other things like hand sanitizer. That hasn't been determined, but for those students on campus, it will be provided, and staff and faculty, the face mask will be provided.
And it goes back to what was said earlier about safety for all of us is the top priority when people start coming back to campus a little bit more than what we have now. Sue, there was a question, I guess, to all of us. We haven't announced the winter plan yet, but Ann Arbor will not be coming back until after MLK Day. I know we had communicated we're looking at by October 1st to announce our winter plan. I don't know if you want to expand a little bit more.
Yeah, no. As I touched on briefly before, I think what the provost team would like to do is to explore a few scenarios. The Ann Arbor plan, I'd be surprised if it wasn't one of them, but there are other. Our campus, our student population, the way we are is different in significant ways from Ann Arbor. So what they do may not be absolutely, the best fit for us. I think, you know, there were some questions about, do we expect it to be very different than fall? I think unless, you know, a miracle happens and there's a vaccine, I think many of the elements that have been sort of developed and put in place for fall, I wouldn't be at all surprised, you know, that they will continue into the winter, though the timings might be inverted or certainly different. So yeah, will we do what Ann Arbor does? I want to wait and see what you folks think.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah. I just also wanted to say that I think that folks might be pleased to hear that student group that Ken just mentioned, that are working with Amy Finley. Amy reports that they are, you know, just a wonderful bunch, thinking very seriously, very thoughtfully about these issues. And mindfully, you know, they're aware of this. They're aware of the situation and the particular, you know, conditions of being a commuter campus. So I was very pleased to hear that. Thought I'd share.
Thanks. And so another question, piggybacking on that, you know, there's how do we enforce people to wear masks, particularly the students, because it has become a political issue for some. And I know this is a topic that the EOC is talking about and discussing, and that will be part of the safety plan that's announced as we get closer to the fall. This would be awful if it happened, but this is a scheduling question. Not sure if we have the an answer today, but what happens if students sign up for 2 different courses and their instructors want to meet at the same time online? So how would we work through that? Do we know? Do we have an answer? It's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, Melissa, this will be, you know, we'll start to see that as we reschedule the, you know, sort of the registrar's office goes through the individual student schedules. I think we can, such things would pop up.
Yeah, I think that obviously it's really been done in phases, right? The first step was how do we, because if you remember, the first step was what courses are we going to have on campus, and that had to be done with a lens of trying to keep distance and breaking things out. That was sort of the first step, and I think, yeah, exactly right now they are trying to, you know, it's like a puzzle, right? Coordinating now what has been asked and how we kind of fit this into the now next stage of the puzzle. So I don't know that right now we could guarantee that a student who had selected this, you know, based on a previous course schedule won't have conflicts, but I think it'll be trying to be minimal. And I think, Sue, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that we also felt like try to limit that the goal in most cases, if it can be done well, is to be as asynchronous as possible to try to limit that type of situation.
That's correct. And if synchronous, use the time that the course was supposed to be taught as far as possible too, so the kids have that time. So it's a great question though, and something we'll definitely have to keep an eye on.
Well, all these questions are good, but
yeah, they are.
Yeah, with the fiscal year starting next week, we don't have a budget. What do we do? And this happens at the state and federal level often. So I don't know what we do. I know we're not going to close down, but I'm assuming we have the resources and the budget just to keep moving things forward. Jeff or Domenico?
I'll take this one. I've been thinking about this for about 2 or 3 hours now, actually. So this is an environment that, you know, from the last town hall that we've been working on expense reductions. So if we had an environment where we had growth this year and we were looking to increase budgets, I would expect the leaders would be saying, all right, what's my increased budget? But because the leaders, deans, vice chancellors, many directors have been working on expense reductions within their units, and they know what they're going to be, we will continue as business as usual over the next 3 to 4 weeks until we get to the next regents meeting. The bills will still be paid that have to be paid, and we'll move forward. And thankfully, we do have a regents meeting scheduled in July, and that's the goal, is to get that finished there. Domenico, is there anything else that you think of with that?
You're on mute, Domenico. You all did it.
I did the same thing. I said, as long as we're paying our bills, I think that's the bottom line at a minimum here, right?
There's a question about how does block tuition work with part-time students?
Yeah, first let me say that we are not the only university this year that is seeking block tuition. Saginaw Valley and Grand Valley are both moving to block tuition. Michigan State moved to block tuition last year. Over half of the 15 publics have block tuition. And it doesn't inhibit anybody that's part-time from staying part-time. It just means that once you hit 12, you've paid that entry fee and you can take as many as you want above 12. So if you want to take 11, you can still take 11. You can take 3, you can take 6 credits. It's up to the student. But once you hit 12, then you've paid for as many as you want. And that is a big benefit for our students. And hopefully it'll encourage them. The difference calculated, I think, Jeff, you did this calculation for us, between in graduating in 4 years rather than graduating in 5 years is $13,000. So there is a cost benefit analysis that has to be made as to whether students want to double down, finish earlier, move to a job post-baccalaureate that's going to pay them more money. And then if they had to take out a small loan, they could pay that back and they still come ahead of the ball in the ball game.
So there's a lot of questions that are still popping up regarding, staff and coming back in the fall and what's the plan. I can share that part of the EOC, there's a subcommittee that's been formed on addressing that question specifically that Laura Drabchek is heading up, but I don't know, colleagues, if there's anything to add. I know that's still a question, I understand, for half of us, what's going to happen in the fall. And I know the directive right now is to continue to work at home through the summer, as the chancellor stated, but I know we're working on a plan. I don't know if anyone wants to add to what I just shared.
I just want to say, and I'll let my colleagues chime in, we are very sensitive to the disparity in homework conditions. And that I know that there are many folks that would like to get back on campus for a variety of different reasons to improve their efficiencies or access other resources there. But the decision to stay at home really is asking us to make this sacrifice in the interest of public health. We're only doing this because we feel that it is protective of the public health. And unfortunately, everybody is going to experience the sacrifice differently. And we are very aware of these inequities, and we're working to try to resolve them. But right now, the common wisdom is that it's in everybody's best interest to try to stay at home, if you can, and protect the public health.
I'll add a few other points. There is a committee, as we mentioned, includes Laura Drabchek, Carol Glick. I think it's being chaired by Molly and Rima from HR. And I would expect that the template for this will be out soon. We've learned through working remotely, there are a number of positions that can continue indefinitely working remotely, and that will be part of the plan too.
So Ken, can I sharpen up my answer? I see a comment from Cam, about the sync, async, and you really, if you're going to use sync, use the time that's in the original schedule for anything synchronous, so the kids know when you're doing it. I mean, if you want to have optional, drop in office hours or something, that's fine. The more interaction we can have with the students, the better. But if you're going to teach, stick to the pre-existing schedule for anything synchronous. And I think that'll help with the question that was raised earlier about conflict. Anyway, sorry, just wanted to sharpen it up. I'm not sure I was very clear. Okay.
Do we have any information for students who are planning on living at the Union?
Mm-hmm. So I'll take that. There's been a few leaders and myself that have been working with the owners and their management team, both on safety standards that we want to have, but also how many people are signing up. They are down year over year as expected. So they're struggling right now, getting ready for fall enrollment. And I can assure the campus that we are going to do everything we can to influence them to provide a safe environment for our students that are there. And there'll be more to come. We have meetings coming up with them in the next couple of weeks that we'll be able to provide more information to the campus, I think, in our next town hall.
So questions are starting to slow a little bit. So I don't know if I could ask my panelists just to go through these. Some of these I think are a little bit more HR in nature that are probably best served to be addressed separately and offline.
I see someone asking about diversification of revenue streams, and I think that's absolutely right. You know, we are very tuition dependent. Most institutions of higher education are, and you know, the state, as we all know, is less and less supportive. So, you know, there are things that we can do, and the chancellor, since he got here, has been working on those. You know, institutional advancement, boosting their level of activity, and research is also a potential addition to our coffers. So, you know, I think we do have to diversify. I don't know if you want to say anything else, Chancellor. I saw that one.
Originally, interestingly, one of the other diversification models that we had been considering is building a residence hall on campus so that we could attract out-of-state students with out-of-state tuition. But that maybe we were fortunate that we didn't put a shovel in the ground yet, because then we would be facing all sorts of additional complications to our remote learning experience right now. But the two that you suggested, Sue, are exactly right. We're trying to really ramp up our philanthropy and our giving to the university, and we're trying to increase our research portfolio so we can have indirects support our operational mission as well.
So Jeff, maybe this is for you. Because you may have more information on this than I do, but any concern that the state may withhold some of our remaining payments from this current fiscal year?
Yes, I just saw that question coming in. I was going to pipe in. Yes, I'm concerned. I think most leaders in the state of Michigan in my role are concerned. So that's been in our modeling, as we talked about at last town hall, in our thinking, and don't have an answer yet. That's frustrating, but I think we all recognize that right now, that that's a concern as we move forward. And at the heart of the concern is the lack of revenue that the state's receiving. So when you really look at their numbers, and they've had their first revenue conference, I think in May, we hope we'll get more information late summer, but I can't promise or guarantee that from the state. So that's still an unknown.
Let's see.
There's questions about potential additional cuts that we did a 5% cut across the academic units, a little bit higher in the service units. I think it's too early at this point. I think, Domenico, you shared that we're going to be going back and looking at things again based on the Regent's actions this morning. I don't know if there's anything to add to that.
I don't think so, but given volatility of everything, financial markets, Melissa, as she pointed out, we're still not certain on enrollment for the fall, what the state appropriation is going to look like, what's going to happen with the regents and tuition increases. I think everything is in play once more, and we have to really sharpen our pencils again and take another closer look at this, given the change in the boundary conditions that we were operating in.
Yeah, Ken, if you want, there's a couple questions that came in I can touch on that I think sort of followed up my, there was a question about how enrollment numbers are looking by college and how they compare with prior year. I do know there's a lot of people across campus that do see some of the point in time comparisons year to year that we do still publish. And I am hesitant sometimes. It's like, because it is such a strange year and the uncertainty, one of the things I will point out for those who may see those is I want to remind everybody that the good news is like I said, based on projections, we're in line of what we expected. Our returning right now undergrad is in line and actually slightly ahead than prior year at this point. Our graduate is down, but we expected it to be. We've talked earlier, I think in previous meetings, about obviously international is a volatility that impacts a graduate more specifically than even undergrad. So that was in line of what we projected to see. With the new students, I do want to remind everybody that orientation is very different this year. So when you're looking at what numbers look like for actually enrollment for new students, it is going to look down in the sense that students right now can only be oriented virtually, and it basically is happening over a lot longer period of time through the summer to do it well. And so I do want to say that what we're seeing as far as new student enrollment is in line with our projections, but if you look at actual enrollment and registration right now, it may look down, but that is not a reflection of what we're hearing who is coming. It's just the timing of when they can get oriented and get classes. So I do want to caution people who may see data when you're comparing year to year right now, there are some differences in comparing year to year. And just kind of want to make sure that's clear sometimes, that obviously it's hard if you're not comparing apples to apples data to have a true comparison. One other question was raised about recruitment, about on-campus and guided tours. I can speak to the admissions office itself that yes, we do not intend to have any guided tours. One, if the students aren't on campus, we can't even give them the same type of experience anyway. And I think it's a risk we don't want to take on as an institution. There was a question specifically about hosting athletics recruits. I will not necessarily directly comment. Maybe Domenico wants to comment on that. I don't know that we've had that specific conversation, but I think that if we're not doing it for admissions in general, I think it would make sense, but I do think everything would be facilitated in a virtual type. And I will say that we are working on a virtual tour to be able to roll out also to help supplement what we do also virtually through other means.
Thanks, Melissa. Sue, this question came up in advance, I think from a faculty member, about with labs and lectures being done, recorded, and put online. Is that their property or is it university property?
Yeah, no, and that's a good question, and it came up shortly after I arrived. We talked about it with the faculty council, especially moving into a digital environment. So there's a very clear university SPG on this. It's 601.28. Basically, and I'll get this straight, the university graciously, this is the language, gives the copyright to the course creator unless there is additional pay involved, like if you got paid an extra stipend to develop it. In certain circumstances, if say there's a medical emergency, an instructor's course material could be shared for a limited amount of time just to ensure continuity of instruction for the students. But as the copyright holder, the creator of the course can always choose to share it with colleagues, but conversely, an instructor would not be able to access anyone else's materials without their express permission. And this applies to all modalities, including the digital. So faculty in the majority of cases own the copyright. So I hope people would consider sharing.
Okay, that pretty much uses our hour. There's a couple thank yous. Thank you to Maria on my team. She took over the behind the scenes controlling today, along with a lot of support from our IT department. So I always say this at the end of each meeting, we can't do this without you because you turn us on and off, and we just say the words that we prep for based on the questions we receive and the information we want to share. So thank you. You guys do a great job, and we really appreciate it. And I think panelists, any closing thoughts? Domenico has his finger up.
Yep.
Ken, that's good.
I do want to thank everyone for joining, but I do want to just remind you that when we started our strategic planning effort, I said that we should look at strategic planning from a tabula rasa perspective, a blank slate. This is another opportunity for us to really think creatively about the opportunities that are before us. We have a lot of different ways we can restructure, rethink what we're offering, how we're offering it, how we organize ourselves, how to make it more efficient and better from a student perspective. And I would welcome any suggestions that you might have, and especially working with the provost and her team, thinking about the most creative ways we can go forward in this new environment. And there was a question about the Go Blue guarantee, and if I've talked to the regents about it, and I do want to address that because when I first arrived, or when Melissa first arrived here, we started thinking about the best ways we could financially support our students. And we're still working on ways that are most appropriate for the Dearborn campus to support its students. And hopefully we'll be able to move in that direction in the near future. But Ann Arbor is doing one thing. We have to do things, as the provost said, that are most appropriate for our campus. We have different populations, different needs, and different opportunities. So I'd like to encourage everybody to provide their best thinking to us. And I can assure you that the leadership team is working around the clock to do the best to serve you and our students. Thank you, and go Blue.
Go Blue.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody. Until next time.
Take care.